So, the shadow war is over. It's done. Now missiles are flying, and honestly, the whole world is on edge. The United States and Iran are in a direct, open confrontation. But how in the world did we get here? And maybe more importantly, where is all this going? Okay, let's break it all down.
A massive and ongoing effort. Those are the words from President Trump, and they really tell you everything you need to know. This isn't being framed as some limited skirmish. No, this is a major military campaign, and it's easily one of the biggest foreign policy gambles in recent memory.
To really get a handle on what's at stake, we have to start with what's happening on the ground right now, the strikes and the counterstrikes that are just dominating the headlines. Let's trace this cycle of escalation that pretty much lit the fuse on this whole thing.
Okay, so the first big move was a coordinated air campaign, a joint effort by the United States and Israel. And you've got to understand, the targets weren't random at all. They were highly strategic, hitting Iran's nuclear facilities and key military infrastructure. The public goal? Neutralize immediate threats and stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Well, Iran's response was incredibly fast and very direct. We're talking a barrage of missiles targeting U.S. bases all across the region. This was a huge step up. I mean, the conflict went from covert ops and shadow games to open, state-on-state warfare. And just like that, neighboring countries were caught right in the crossfire.
And you know, the fallout wasn't just military. Over on the diplomatic front, the European Union made a really big move. They designated Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, you know them as the IRGC, as a terrorist organization. Now, this was partly a response to the IRGC's brutal crackdown on protesters inside Iran, but Tehran immediately shot back, calling it a strategic mistake that would only make things worse.
All of this action, it really begs a crucial question. What is the endgame here? Because this isn't just about blowing up military targets. It's a massive, high-stakes gamble. And believe me, the experts are deeply, profoundly divided on how this is all going to play out.
In this slide right here, it just perfectly illustrates the two competing theories. On one side, you have the belief that these strikes could be that final push, the one that causes the entire Iranian regime to just collapse from within. But on the other side, well, it's a much darker scenario, that the regime weathers the storm and then unleashes its whole network of proxy militias, sparking a catastrophic region-wide war.
So which one is it? Which of these futures is more plausible? You've got analysts looking at the exact same set of facts and coming to completely opposite conclusions. It really all boils down to what they believe about the fundamental nature of the Iranian state. Let's take a look at the arguments on both sides.
So the people who back this first theory, they're essentially betting that Iran is a house of cards. The core idea here is that the regime is fundamentally brittle. The strategy, and President Trump has been open about this, is regime change. The thinking is, you hit the government hard, you shatter its image of being invincible, and you give that final spark to years of protests and economic frustration to finally boil over into a full-blown revolution. But then, of course, there's the counter-argument, and it rests on a totally different idea, that this regime is resilient. Skeptics are warning that Iran isn't some fragile state. It's a hardened security machine that has survived incredible pressure for decades. And, history shows us that air power alone almost never topples a regime. The real fear here is that Iran survives this and then responds asymmetrically by activating its powerful proxies and dragging everyone into a brutal, drawn-out regional war.
So how on earth did the stakes get this high? To really grasp the gamble being made today, we have to look back. Because this conflict didn't just appear out of thin air. It's rooted in a really complicated history where, and this might be hard to believe, Iran and Israel weren't always enemies.
It's really a shocking reversal. Before 1979, back when the Shah was in power, Iran and Israel were actually quiet partners, working together against shared Arab rivals. But the 1979 Islamic Revolution, it changed everything. Overnight, they became ideological enemies. By the 80s, Iran was building its first major proxy, Hezbollah. Then in the 90s, the nuclear program becomes the central flashpoint, which kicks off this decades-long shadow war of sabotage and covert strikes. And that's the war that is now, as we've seen, just exploded into open confrontation.
And that brings us right to the single biggest driver of this whole conflict, the issue that casts a shadow over everything else, Iran's nuclear ambitions. Let's be really precise here, okay? No serious analyst debates whether Iran has a nuclear program. That's a proven fact. The entire international crisis revolves around just one question. What is that program's ultimate purpose? Is it for peaceful energy? Or is it for a weapon? This slide does a fantastic job of breaking down what we know for sure versus what's still unproven. So there is undeniable proof of a substantial nuclear program. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, they've been monitoring enrichment for years. Now, enrichment is basically concentrating uranium. You get it to a low level, you've got fuel for a power plant. You get it to a very high level, you've got the core of a bomb. We also have strong evidence they researched weaponization in the past. But today, well, there's no public smoking gun. The IAEA has not found conclusive proof of an active, ongoing bomb-making program right now.
So, with the conflict now completely out in the open and this massive nuclear question just hanging in the balance, what does this all mean for the future of the Middle East, and really for the rest of the world?
Well, the immediate consequences are already becoming crystal clear. The whole region is getting more militarized and just dangerously volatile. The risk of clashes with proxy groups is higher than ever. Any disruption to shipping in the critical Strait of Hormuz could make global oil prices just skyrocket. And the Arab Gulf states? They're caught in an impossible position, trapped between their fear of Iran and the risk of their own countries becoming the battleground. We're seeing diplomacy get shoved aside for open force.
Looking ahead, experts really see three main ways this could go. Path 1, a short, sharp conflict that sets a new, harsher kind of deterrence, and then things maybe go quiet again. Path 2, a grinding, endless conflict, a state of chronic, low-grade regional war that just becomes the new, ugly normal. Or Path 3, the most unpredictable outcome of all, a sudden collapse of the Iranian regime, which would unleash immediate chaos and just profound long-term uncertainty for everyone.
One thing is absolutely certain. The old rules are gone. The shift from a shadow war to open confrontation has already created a new Middle East. The status quo has been completely shattered. So the only question left now is what this new, more dangerous and more uncertain region is ultimately going to look like.